Something historic just happened, and almost nobody's talking about it. While retail traders chase the next meme coin, the world's largest financial institutions, Nasdaq, the IMF, and the same global banks that built the backbone of modern finance just flipped the switch. They're quietly moving their digital infrastructure toward Hedera HBAR. This isn't hype. It's the moment the crypto underdog became the institutional standard. Because when trillion-dollar funds, banks, and governments start testing on Hedera, it's not speculation anymore, it's succession. The future of finance isn't coming. It's already running on Hedera. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. When I first heard that Nasdaq and global banking networks were quietly testing infrastructure linked to Hedera HBAR, I didn't believe it. Not because it wasn't possible, but because this kind of power move never happens in public. The real changes in finance don't start with headlines or influencers. They start in boardrooms in quiet, calculated meetings where the world's money custodians rewrite the rules before the rest of us even realize the game has changed. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Behind the noise of crypto Twitter and the chaos of speculative coins, a different story is unfolding. One that doesn't chase the next 100x, but builds the rails for trillions to move safely, instantly, and transparently. This story is Hedera. And for the first time in blockchain history, the world's most powerful institutions are aligning with it. Let's pull back the curtain. In early 2025, whispers began surfacing. IBM, Google, and Standard Bank weren't just members of Hedera's council. They were building on it. These are companies that don't gamble on hype. They build empires. IBM integrated Hedera into its digital asset haven platform, a compliance-grade ecosystem for banks and governments to tokenize real-world assets. Meanwhile, Standard Bank, Africa's largest financial institution, confirmed Hedera's role in powering cross-border settlements. And that's just the surface. The Bank of England, working alongside the BIS Innovation Hub, publicly confirmed Hedera as one of the 9 selected firms testing distributed ledger technology for wholesale central bank money settlement. That's not some crypto pilot in a basement, that's the Bank of England, the same institution that underpins one of the world's oldest financial systems, experimenting with Hedera's core consensus technology. You see, institutions aren't looking for hype coins. They're looking for stability, scalability, and compliance. Bitcoin brought decentralization. Ethereum brought programmability. But Hedera brings trust. It's carbon negative, lightning fast, and built on Hashgraph consensus, not traditional blockchain. That means near instant finality, a transaction verified in seconds, not minutes, and at a fraction of the energy cost of proof-of-work chains. The world's largest asset managers, from BlackRock to Fidelity, are already building roadmaps around tokenization. And what kind of network do they need? One that can handle regulatory oversight, massive transaction throughput, and ESG accountability. Hedera checks every box. While crypto influencers screamed bear market, institutions were quietly positioning themselves, filing documents, running pilots, joining governance councils. If you think the last bull run was about speculation, the next one will be about infrastructure, and Hedera is the infrastructure. Here's what most people miss. When financial history shifts, it doesn't happen with fireworks. It happens with filings. And over the past months, filings for Hedera-related ETFs, tokenization pilots, and ISO 20022 compatible integrations have begun stacking up. These are the breadcrumbs, and they all lead to one destination: institutional migration. So when you hear the phrase, "the world's largest institutions just flipped to Hedera," don't think of it as hype. Think of it as confirmation that the networks of tomorrow are already being wired into the financial systems of today. Because what's happening isn't a pump, it's a pivot. And when the smartest money in the world pivots, you don't ask if it matters. You ask how soon the rest will follow. While everyone's been arguing about Bitcoin ETFs and meme coins, a quiet war has been raging beneath the surface, not for dominance in price, but for control over infrastructure. The real prize in this new financial era isn't who can launch the next hype token. It's who can build the rails the world's money will run on. And in that silent war, Hedera is winning ground faster than most realize. Think about it. The global financial system runs on legacy rails built decades ago. Swift, chips, Fedwire, all relying on messaging standards and settlement layers never designed for tokenized assets, instant value transfer, or programmable money. The world needed a new foundation, something secure, compliant, sustainable, and instant. And that's where Hedera's Hashgraph steps in. Unlike traditional blockchains, Hedera doesn't rely on miners or energy-hungry validation. Its gossip about gossip protocol allows information to spread across the network with unmatched speed and finality. We're talking transactions settled in under 5 seconds, fully auditable and mathematically fair. That kind of performance isn't just impressive, it's institutional grade. It's the kind of consistency a central bank or trillion-dollar fund needs to trust. And that's exactly why we're seeing names like IBM, Google Cloud, Boeing, Standard Bank, and LG Electronics not only building on Hedera, but governing it. These companies don't play in maybe. They operate in must-work. They demand compliance, uptime, and real-world results. Hedera gives them that. Now, zoom out for a second. The ISO 20022 messaging standard, the new global format for financial communication, is being rolled out by SWIFT, Fedwire, and central banks worldwide. This isn't optional. It's the new language of global finance. And guess which distributed ledger is fully aligned with ISO 20022? That's right, Hedera Hashgraph. This isn't speculation, it's preparation. The Bank of England, the BIS Innovation Hub, and even HSBC are experimenting with digital settlement platforms where Hedera's deterministic consensus could play a key role. Projects like Project Meridian and Project Rosalind are exploring tokenized central bank money, atomic settlement, and instant cross-border exchange. And Hedera's inclusion in these dialogues is no coincidence. Meanwhile, corporate adoption is accelerating. ServiceNow and Avery Dennison are using Hedera to track carbon credits and verify supply chain authenticity. These aren't future use cases. They're active implementations running right now on Hedera's mainnet, proving that blockchain isn't about speculation anymore, it's about integration. Here's the beauty. While most networks are loud about future partnerships, Hedera moves in silence. It doesn't need hype, it has proof. Billions of verified transactions, audited ESG compliance, a governance model transparent enough for regulators, yet decentralized enough for innovation. This is why the world's largest asset managers are circling. They don't want a casino. They want a compliant ecosystem where tokenization can happen at scale. Real estate, bonds, carbon credits, even data itself. Hedera's architecture isn't built for volatility. It's built for velocity. When you see how everything aligns, ISO 20022, tokenized assets, ESG mandates, cross-border settlements, the picture becomes clear. Hedera isn't chasing trends. It's positioning itself as the infrastructure of the new financial system. And that's what makes this moment different. Bitcoin started a revolution, Ethereum gave it a brain, but Hedera is giving it a backbone, one strong enough to carry the entire financial world into the digital age. Because in this silent war for infrastructure, speed and speculation won't win. Trust will. And right now, the trust is shifting straight into Hedera's hands. Here's the part the media still hasn't caught up to. Hedera isn't just a blockchain project anymore. It's evolving into the operating system of global finance. The proof? You can already trace its fingerprints across everything the world's top regulators and institutions are building. From central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, to tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, to carbon tracking, supply chains, and compliance automation, Hedera's technology sits at the intersection of trust, speed, and governance. Think about it. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, and the World Economic Forum, WEF, have all emphasized one shared goal: the creation of a digitized, interoperable financial ecosystem. And the key requirement for that? A distributed ledger technology, DLT, that's green, stable, and auditable at scale. Hedera checks every one of those boxes. And this isn't a someday conversation, it's unfolding now. The BIS Innovation Hub's Project Meridian is already testing settlement models using Hedera's deterministic finality to simulate instant cross-border payments. The Bank of England's Synchronization Lab, launching in 2026, explicitly lists Hedera among the few DLTs selected to pilot atomic settlement for wholesale banking. In simpler terms, while retail investors watch price charts, Hedera is quietly being woven into the architecture that global money itself will soon depend on. But let's talk about the part that impacts you, the holder, the believer, the early mover. Every institutional adoption, every pilot, every ETF filing adds another layer of demand pressure to HBAR. Not the speculative kind, but functional demand. Because when tokenized assets, payment rails, and enterprise networks begin using Hedera, they consume HBAR for transaction fees, validation, and governance. And that's where the opportunity lies. You're not betting on hype anymore, you're holding digital infrastructure. Clifford, the institutional quant we mentioned earlier, calls it the flip. He's been tracking order flows for 30 years, equities, derivatives, commodities. But the pattern he's seeing now, it's different. The whales aren't day trading. They're accumulating quietly, in predictable waves. The same way early Wall Street syndicates built their positions in internet infrastructure before the dot-com boom. And here's the twist most retail investors will miss. By the time the world realizes Hedera is powering everything from central bank rails to carbon credits to institutional DeFi, it'll be too late to buy it cheap. Because institutions don't accumulate forever, they activate. Once they're ready, the liquidity floodgates open. That's when ETF inflows meet on-chain utility. That's when tokenization projects go live. That's when boring infrastructure becomes the hottest asset class in the world because it quietly underpins the entire digital economy. Hedera isn't chasing that moment, it's engineering it. Its council continues expanding, its partnerships compound, and its technology keeps outperforming legacy blockchains. Every pilot that moves from testnet to mainnet makes the network stronger, the token more essential, and the narrative impossible to ignore. This is why when analysts say Hedera's decade is beginning, they're not exaggerating. It's not about catching the next bull run. It's about understanding that the real wealth in crypto won't come from hype coins. It'll come from the plumbing of the next financial era. And that plumbing? It's being built on Hedera. So, as the noise fades and the headlines shift, remember this. The institutions aren't preparing for blockchain. They're preparing for Hedera. And if you're already here, holding HBAR before the world connects the dots, you're not late. You're early, right on time for the next financial revolution.